In March of 1930, Mahatma Gandhi headed out on a walk. Actually, it was a walk that was much more than a walk. It was the Salt March. India was under British rule, and the British had imposed a salt tax. Salt, which was a gift from the sea, was taxed. And it was illegal even to pick up a piece of salt. Without paying a tax first to the British. And so, he started out on his walk with about 78 of his followers. Each morning, at 6, they would get up, they would pray, they would meditate, they would chant, then they would do their ablution, their ritual washing, and then have some breakfast, and off they would go. They would stop in villages along the way. And as they entered the village, people would go out and put water on the road to keep the dust down. They would put rose petals and other petals, flower petals out to make it softer under the walker's feet. Sounds kind of like Palm Sunday that we celebrated just a few weeks ago. And as Gandhi would go through the villages, he would encourage them to be strong in their fight against the British. And as he walked, more walked with them until the point he got to the sea. And on April the 6th of 1930, that group of about 80 had become a group of thousands. And that morning at 8:30, he walked into the sea, he bathed, and then as he got out, he bent down and picked up a piece of salt that had washed up on the shore. It was an act of defiance. The walk had become so much more than just a walk. In our gospel reading today, 2 disciples are walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. We don't know exactly where Emmaus was. Scriptures tell us it was about 7 miles from Jerusalem, about 11.2 kilometers. And as they walked, they were talking about everything that had happened. Suddenly, as they walked, a stranger appeared on the road. They didn't know who it was. And he asked them what they'd been talking about, and they were incredulous. What do you mean, what are we talking about? It's all over Jerusalem. Come on, it's trending on Twitter. Everybody is talking about this. We are followers of Jesus. His words, his works were tremendous. They were transformative. We thought he was the one who was going to lead Israel to freedom. But just a few days ago, he was crucified. And then this morning, some of our women went to the grave and found the tomb empty. And someone who appeared to be an angel spoke to them and said that he is alive. They were reeling. Their world had been turned upside down. They were struggling to make sense of it all. The stranger started to talk to them about their scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, and how they pointed towards the Messiah. And then when they got to the edge of the village, he made as if he was going to walk further on, and they asked him to stay with them, to have a meal with them, because the hour was late. And he agreed. As they sat down to the meal, the guest became the host. He took the bread, he blessed it, he broke it, and as he did that, their eyes were opened, and in a moment, they recognized him, and then he was gone. They said to one another how our hearts were on fire as he spoke to us on the road. John Wesley, in an experience that transformed his life, talked about his heart being strangely warmed. Blaise Pascal told of an evening when he experienced fire as he understood the reality of his faith, as God became so real to him. That was the fire that was burning in these disciples as they understood that Jesus had been with them. They hurried back to Jerusalem to tell the other disciples and found out that Jesus had appeared to them as well. He was alive. Their journey was not over. They had many more miles to walk. Mahatma Gandhi's journey was not over on that April morning. As he picked up that piece of salt, he was arrested. Many of his followers were beaten brutally and savagely. It would take 17 more years for India to achieve independence. And even then, it came at a cost of partition, which Gandhi never wanted. India and Pakistan became two separate countries. Until the day of his death, he continued to walk in an effort to reunite his country. His walk was not over. Our walk is not over. If you are listening to my voice today, know that you have miles to go before you sleep and promises to keep, as Robert Frost reminded us. And know that you are not on this journey alone. Leo Tolstoy struggled for much of his life. Despair, depression, suicidal thoughts. One spring morning, maybe like this morning, he went out into the woods. And he stood silently and listened to the sounds of the woods. And then in a moment that would change his life, the words came to him. He is here. He knew that he was not alone, that God was with him on the journey. Mountain climbers talk about the third man on the mountain. When two people are climbing and the way is treacherous, the journey is hard, they will report that when life is hanging in the balance, they will sometimes see a third man accompany them and bring them to safety and then disappear. They refer to the third man on the mountain. Today, your journey is not over. You are on a walk that can be so much more than just a walk. Know that you do not journey alone. Know that we walk together. Even though now we have to be separate physically, we are still journeying together. Know, most importantly, when you walk, that He is here. That third man on the mountain, that fire that burns within. Know that you do not journey alone. Know the reality of those words, that He walks with me and He talks with me and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.